Hey everyone, it's Chris here, and welcome to a short little video I decided to make regarding Halo 5 Guardians in the Gameinformer articles that we have just seen come out, referring to the new details in the game. So I was able to go through websites such as NeoGAF, although I needed to dissolve the giant piles of salt everywhere. And I was able to go to Halo Waypoint, and I needed to get past all the venomous hate, unconditional hate. And I was able to find details referring to the Gameinformer article, summarizations revolving around the new features that we're going to be seeing in the game, and I'm going to be talking about them, and I'm going to be giving some of my personal thoughts and some of my allusions to different things within the Halo games that these sort of things can be basing off of and how they're going to be benefiting us. So let's begin by going through. Whether playing as Chief or Locke, you're accompanied by a fire team of 3 AI, which you can command and issue orders to in the campaign. So, interesting. You're no longer alone. So, is this going to mean that it's going to be something of a tactical shooter now? The second thing on the list sort of plays into the first one, and that's the fact that you have a D-pad to order your comrades to pick up specific weapons on the map, or attack enemies, or mount up onto vehicles. So, it's essentially very, very much like Republic Commando, which is, I believe, is it Tim Longo, I believe, that worked on Republic Commando? If that's the case, I'm quite excited because Republic Commando is one of my favorite Star Wars games. And specifically for the fact that there was never really a very, very good first-person shooter for Star... Well, at the time, I believe it was Jedi Outcasts around that time, and that was a very good first-person shooter, combination third-person slasher. But compared to Battlefront, Republic Commando was a masterpiece, especially with all the character interactions that you had, where the relationship between the characters and the fact that to this day I still want to save Sev. And that says a lot about that fact that the characters have that much influence. If you're hearing anything in the background, just ignore it. Just ignore it. It's in your mind. So, teammates can revive you. This is where some people may get a little bit peeved about this, in that your teammates can revive you. It sort of gives a sense of other squad-based shooters, and the fact that in Halo, when you die, you're pretty much dead. So this is the question. Now, in single-player campaign, if I go down, and the fact of my teammates can revive me, obviously this is not a thing in the arena multiplayer, as we have seen. If you go down, you're down 3 seconds, then you're back in. But in single-player, this could be a little bit different because this could make legendary runs a little bit easier, because if you go down and you're in a safe place, your teammates can come back and help you up. But on the flip side, this sort of takes away some of the risk. So, and it becomes a little bit safer, a little bit hand-holdy, some might say. So I'm curious to see whether or not co-op will treat it the same way as single player. So the game will start out before the Chief is on the run. So now, if you've been following Hunt the Truth like I have, it should be interesting because it's possible that we could actually play the embassy mission, which is not the embassy mission. If there is an embassy mission, that's what it would be called. But the scenario where the Chief was basically helping out to extract negotiators from an embassy under attack, which could mean, this could really mean that we could be fighting human enemies, because Hunt the Truth basically has both the Office of Naval Intelligence acting in a strange capacity, but also that there are splinter factions that are forming terrorist groups. The Insurrection is involved, and a group called Sapient Sunrise. So we have multiple interested parties here, and several of them are human. And if my guess is correct, we will be fighting human enemies. So this is a sort of question that makes me wonder, how are they going to be tweaked? How are they going to be implanted well into the gameplay? Because unless you shot a few of your friendlies, the Marines or the other elites won't turn on you, and they're pretty easy to take down, given the fact that they're a little bit more squishy than your regular enemies. So I'd like to see how that goes out from a storytelling perspective. So audio has been heavily reworked for the Xbox One, so bullet sounds, debris, etc. But that's kind of like a given. We've already seen that. So it's set 8 months after Halo 4 ends. Cataclysmic events are tearing apart star systems, and these are tied to the Guardians, the Forerunner entities shown in the first teaser trailer. Immediately, first thing that comes to my mind is Silentium. The first thing that comes to my mind is Precursors. Precursors everything. I'm not saying it's Precursors, but it's Precursors. Basically, they're the forerunners to the forerunners. They're the big granddaddy of all life in the galaxy. They are God older than time itself, apparently. And if they're tearing apart star systems, this is not quite beyond the forerunners' capabilities, but definitely a step beyond, because this sort of gives a new sort of meaning to the Didact's speech at the end of Halo 4 that the reclamation has begun. Whose reclamation? Originally, I was in the camp that it was humanity that was reclaiming things, because humans were always thought of as the reclaimers, like the inheritors of the forerunners. But, hear me out, but, what if this is actually referring to the Precursors reclaiming what in their mind is rightfully theirs? Dominion over the galaxy, to rule with an iron fist, to make sure that nobody second guesses them ever again. This is basically what's on my mind. We're going to actually see some Precursors coming in and becoming involved, because at the end of Silentium, there's a good chance that there were still remnants of the Precursors' great works outside of the galaxy at the time the Halos were detonated, because they had to be at the greater arc when they destroyed it. So it's the only explanation in my mind. Not saying it's Precursors, but it's Precursors. Precursors, next point. So the second mission is what we saw here, and I'm going to be putting up some screens to sort of detail this. Now, some people might be taking a little bit of a raised eyebrow approach to this, and that the screenshots were looking suspiciously like the first level from Halo 4. And you know what? That was on my mind as well, because it was obviously a fact that they were on a starship, a human starship. So we had some similar designs, and the thought that came to my mind of course, this looks similar to the first level of Halo 4. But here's my justification. This may sound a little bit, oh, I can't believe back in this stuff. Well, I mean, from a practical perspective, starships of a certain class will look alike. If you've ever seen multiple ships or multiple different classes of, let's say, cruise ships, they all have their own layout, more or less. But generally speaking, if you're mass-producing starships, they're going to have a very similar deck layout, or very similar aesthetics, because that's the uniform procedure of a military, okay? It just makes common sense. It's like, you're not like going on the USS Constitution, the USS Enterprise, and you're thinking to yourself, oh, geez, you know what? I couldn't even tell which ship was one or the other. Of course they would, because there are more or less similarities between ships, even between classes. So, I'm not quite defending this, but I kind of am as well, because it could be lazy, but not really, given from what we've been seeing from the other screenshots so far. Like, there was a screenshot that came out of Agent Lock-On saying Helios, and you can basically see the different lighting, the different colors, the masonry and the stuff that's behind them. So it's obvious that we're going to be seeing a little bit of a difference between settings. So in a military sort of setting like the one in the second mission here, I can understand. So Oni research vessel. After 2 years, does this fall within the timeline of the Rubicon from Halo Silentium, the ship that the fragment of 343 Guilty Spark takes over? Now, granted, this could be any abandoned Oni research vessel. It could be, but it could be a specific one. Given how 343 Guilty Spark was involved in the disappearance of that vessel, I'm willing to bet that perhaps this could be the same boat. Who knows? So, Team Banter replaces interactions with Cortana to flesh out characters. By now, we know that Cortana is dead. She's dead, she's gone, she's not coming back. At least, I don't think so. I hope not. You kind of ruined the meaningful nature of the sacrifice. But Team Banter. Now let's talk about this. Now some people of course had some issues with the Spartan 4s being all, bro, dude, check out that touchdown, man. Man, you totally nailed him, dude. Great headshot, bro, or something like that. But Locke's team is more of an elite group, and of course comprised of people who have seen their fair share of glassings. Edward Buck being one of them. Of course, Buck. Oh, my God. Edward, you're looking fine today. I mean, Nathan Fillion, he... What's Captain Reynolds doing in my Halo? But anyways, that's besides the point. Oh, by the way, before I move on, A quick little note on Buck's armor. There is a nice little carving on one of the collar guards there, a V with a heart around it. Of course, a reference to Veronica Dare. And by the way, I just gotta stop here and say that I'm really, really a fan of the new character designs, of course. Buck in particular. Of course, right away I could tell Nathan Fillion, and right away I could tell Buck, but it just startles me, amazingly startles me, how we went from this to this. Lest we forget the Hood, who went to this. Oh, jeez. We really got a little bit better at this facial recognition, facial scanning stuff, this mocap stuff, right? The newfangled technologies. Moving on. But from the Spartans' perspective, the team Banter could be interesting given the fact that they are much more of a tight-knit military unit, acting as one instead of individuals, more or less. Well, they are individuals because, of course, they have their own personalities, especially after their 30, 40 years of aging and whatnot. But that disconnect between John's team and Locke's team should be apparent in the ways that they were trained in a different military doctrine. Spartan 2s had a way tighter training regime under Chief Mendez than Locke's team probably had under their drill instructors. Moving on. Multiple routes in a level. This is interesting because now we're having quite a bit of a callback to Halo 1. If you remember from Halo 1, especially in levels such as Assault on the Control Room, there were times in that level where you could deviate from the given path and go in a different direction, from tunnels or whatnot, or if you could jump over there, or you could use vehicles to get around to different paths. This is interesting because this seems to be a gameplay callback to that time, which I am really looking forward to, given that this is supposed to be something that's supposed to harken back to the old days of Halo. And so I guess the thought process behind it is that Locke's team will apparently have something called the Artemis tracking system, and it makes sense, Artemis the Hunter and all that, which is scan levels, similar to how the visor operates in ODST, where you basically look around and see everything among you, and it will detail routes or offer data on this or give suggestions. I imagine this is what it would look like, and we're going to see this in a couple days, I would think. But I don't think that this is going to be present in the Chiefs levels. Perhaps it's going to be something that's only going to be tied to Locke's side of the story. Zealous religious covenant are slowly abandoning Julian Dama's leadership in Halo 4. Now, we already knew there was a civil war going on in Sang-Healy society, given the Karen Travis novels, and how there was some splintering. We know that Julian Dama is basically the mad bishop of Sang-Helios, who's trying to get people to his cause, whereas the Arbiter side of the conflict is trying to do the exact opposite, and there are people trying to stand with them. Now, given that we've already had some sort of leak of this from the Halo 2 anniversary epilogue involving Locke and the other Spartans, we know that he's at least on decent terms with the Arbiter and his faction, and this given light showing that there are people now pulling away from Ndama, and how he is now much more of a threat really to his fellow Sang-Healy, shows that we are going to be fighting elites. One side dedicated to the Arbiter, that's going to be in more traditional garb, as we've seen in the Halo series, more military-esque in the Covenant. Ndama's Splinter faction, which we know is much more ragtag, and I think the art that we've seen so far will reflect that. Now, this point is actually kind of out of date. Xbox Live Gold not required for online co-op. This is no longer true. We know that it's actually required, although it's not going to be much of an issue for me. The split-screen co-op, as you may or may not know, is not going to be a thing anymore. At least the 4-player thing is not going to be a thing anymore. And this doesn't really bother me as much because in my room, my Xbox is set up only for me. The only reason I got multiple controllers is because my first one had mechanical issues, and this one has charging issues, but more or less this one I got right here still works pretty well. So it doesn't affect me that much. I mean, split-screen co-op for games is not really as prevalent nowadays as it was before. I can't really blame them. Some people might be unhappy, understandably so, because Halo was always one of those couch co-op things where you could sit on a couch, basically play the whole campaign, which I have done before. I remember going through Halo 3 with 3 people. Of course, I always got shafted with the small box. They got the lower third all to themselves, but you know what? That didn't bother me at all. And this doesn't really bother me as much as it would probably bother some other people, which is upsetting, but you kind of make a sacrifice. You know that you have to take the lesser of 2 evils. But I really hope that his decision doesn't come back to haunt them. I really hope that the online campaign co-op really excels. I wish them all the best with that. I hope it goes on excellently. We'll see. Halo 5 will launch with over 20 multiplayer maps. At launch, this is the game with the most, the Halo game with the most multiplayer maps at launch in the series. Now, I've already basically gone through in Destiny. I talked about game modes and all that, but in terms of maps, this is one of the most. Now, my guess is that these 20 maps, I'm going to assume that half of them, close to half of them, are going to be remixes of other maps. Because we've seen that there's at least one replacement, one remake map for every other map. We know with Skyline, Empire is the remix, and we know with Truth, Regret is the remix, and there's probably going to be a couple more, and maybe 1 or 2 Forge maps. We know that perhaps Orion and Pegasus are going to be in the rotation as well, which makes me wonder if other Forge maps are going to be there, or if other dedicated maps are going to be there. I don't know. Also, we haven't seen any details on Big Team Battle yet. Hopefully we will at E3. I hope that we get some information, because they're talking about a new mode that we haven't seen in Halo before. Very, very interesting. Hopefully it's going to be something similar. I hope it's something similar to the World Combat that was originally thought that was going to be in Halo 3 and Halo Reach, because we know that Bungie was at least on the drawing board for that particular concept. So hopefully we're going to see something like that there too. 20 maps is still nothing to laugh at. That's still 20 raw maps that we're going to be seeing. Now here's the kicker. We have 15 more maps by June of next year. So over the course of November, December, October, November, December, so 9 months, we're going to be getting 15 maps. And since it's an odd number, it can't be that all of them are just one map in a remix. Maybe some of them are, but not all of them can be, because it's an odd number anyway. And all these maps are going to be free. Wow. Free map DLC for a Halo game? When's the last time that's happened, with the exception of cold storage? I mean, that should be something that a lot of people should have their ears perking up. It's like, what? Free? Did you say that? Microsoft is giving away something for free? You don't say? It's like people jumping up from behind bushes. Did you say free? But that's what it is. Here it is, black and white. They can't back down from this, even if this was a particular PR hiccup, like the online gold co-op thing. This is amazing, because this is 15 maps. So that would mean the final game is going to be boasting 35 maps by June of next year. 35 maps? That's going to be a little bit of time for some fresh multiplayer experience. And the goal of this, by their own words, was not to splinter the community, and I give them full props for that. Because that was something that all the other DLC maps did. Basically excluded people from the map rotation so that you couldn't play the maps anyway. When's the last time you played, like, what is it, Harvest in Halo 4? When's the last time that someone else chose, actually a lot of people chose Anchor 9, but, what was the one called? Not Orbital, the, Gamma Station. I forget the one that was called there, but you never saw that outside the DLC playlist. So I gotta give 343 credit for doing this, because it's one of the core things that people were upset about regarding DLC maps, that a lot of people couldn't even access them, and so it fractured the playbase just simply by nature. And the fact that they're sidestepping this, it's only a good thing. How can it be a bad thing with a gesture of giving things away for free? So some might be wondering, oh, there's got to be a catch, there's got to be something, there's got to be some sort of DLC. Now, If that DLC or microtransactions happens to be in terms of cosmetics, I don't got a problem with that because it doesn't influence gameplay in any way. It influences how dashing you look on the battlefield, but it doesn't influence how that dashing does more damage over someone else. I don't think so. Next. And of course I already mentioned the epic new multiplayer experience, all new aspects of the Halo sandbox for the first time, possibly going to be that, that world battle thing. I hope it is. And this multiplayer experience is described as a dream of ours and all our Halo fans to build something like this. So they're involving us. They have been involving us. That's what the beta was for, because the like for the beta was quite nice. There were some people, of course, that had issues with the ranking. Of course, I had trouble with matchmaking at times. I had trouble with teammates who just didn't give a damn, who quit or didn't communicate, but that was really an end-user problem. That was their fault for not being involved in the game. But I want to see that 343 really takes the time to ensure that mechanically the multiplayer itself functions on a very good level. Punishes quitters, punishes griefers, punishes people who love to betray, but rewards teamwork, rewards good gameplay. And we know that some of the medals, of course, the fact that the perfect medal is one of my favorite in the beta, of course, that shows that you have good mastery of the weapons that can cause headshot damage and using them well enough. It's hard as balls to get a 4-shot kill with a battle rifle in Halo 5. It's not easy. I mean, it's certainly doable, but you need some good cooperation with the gun, I should say. The gun has to cooperate. It's got to be nice with you, but you have to have nice aim to make sure that you get that sultry perfect from Mr. Steitzer. So that was basically it. I just want to talk about another multiplayer map that I basically saw, and it comes from me looking around, going to different sites and trying to get the information. This is a map called Fathom. And what I've gathered from Fathom is that it's an underwater-based map. So you're in an underwater facility where you're basically killing each other in the deep blue sea. That's awesome. I've never seen an underwater map for Halo. We've certainly been underwater in terms of in the campaign, like in Halo 2 Anniversary's campaign, the parts of Delta Halo that were underwater, but I've never seen a multiplayer map that was underwater. Some people were joking about how there was going to be another Covenant-themed map. There was Truth, Mercy, and Regret. And Regret would be the underwater one. And now we're seeing a very human underwater base. Now, the cool thing is that the aesthetics are really nice. We have shots of Spartans that are in like a glass-covered room where there are cool whales outside and eels. And there's submarine bays that are nice and clearly marked in very, very good red and blue so that there's no way you can get lost at all. Makes me wonder if you're going to be able to go into the water or if the water is deadly or the water's lava or something like that. And it's symmetrical. That's something that some people were very upset with regarding some of the maps in Halo 4, is that there were not that many symmetrical maps. This is a symmetrical map, given the fact that the layout looks visually similar from the screenshots, how a different sub-base on one side looks similar to the other. So, and we know that it's going to be symmetrical with maps like Truth and Regret. So it makes me think that maybe there are going to be some traditionally styled arena multiplayer maps that follow a more symmetrical, even, identical looking structure. I really hope this is the case, because I really, really, really want to see some more traditional arena stuff. And of course, asymmetrical stuff is fine because it's great for objective play and all that. Everyone loved Relic, and I think some of you guys liked the Quarantine Zone, and stuff like High Ground was great. It goes to show that asymmetrical maps can have their appeal, but you got to balance it out. But I'm really, really looking forward to it. I apologize if I dragged on about this right now, but I just wanted to explain my thoughts on the leaks right now. How you have characters like Locke, you have characters like Buck, where you have new characters that like Holly Tanaka, which was basically featured in Halo Escalation, and also Olympia Vale, the second character that comprises Locke team. She's got longish hair. I mean, I kind of had issues with soldiers with long hair and these helmets like that because, well, Speaking, how do you do that? Do you keep it like in a bun like that if you wear it? If you keep it in a bun when you put your helmet on, that's not a problem and all that. But when you have like the sci-fi bob cut where it's basically at your shoulders and then shortens in the back, it's kind of weird because you got to stuff that away. Oh God, don't even get me started on Cal's hair from Halo Legends. That was just horrible. That hair, that shoulder length plus hair. God damn it. All right. But I really like the character design. I like some of the armor design. Not too particularly fond of Vale's armor, but I love pretty much everyone else's. I really like where this is going. I'm really, really looking forward to E3. And please, God, I hope there's a big team battle beta, because that would just make my day now, wouldn't it? Halo 5 is going to release on October 27th. Really looking forward to it. Thanks for bearing through this if you happen to make it through the end. And if you haven't known about this, you do now. Just keep your eye on Gameinformer as well, because they're going to be trickling out, I should say, new information. But people have already been breaking NDA by showing that there's stuff like the bolt shot, suppressor, and incinerator cannon are going to be returning. Plus something that's called the Covenant grenade launcher. Feel free to go through NeoGAF, but I'm pretty sure I'm never going to find that picture again after all the digging that was found. But they're working on something called the Covenant grenade launcher. Could it be an alien incarnation of the Pro Pipe? Who knows? I want to see. Waiting for E3, plus a return of the Sprint on June 17th. So they're probably going to be explaining stuff there. Now, for real this time, I'm out of here. Thanks a lot for listening. Hopefully you enjoyed this, and I'll see you in the next video. This is Actual, and I'm signing off.